I did a video last night on how I make bee food, and I realized I didn't necessarily explain real well what all you need to do bee food. I kind of did it in pieces and parts, right? But basically, you need some measuring things. You might need a funnel. Um, you need something to store the bee food in when you're done. Um, how big of a storage container will depend on how much bee food you're going to make. I use this, which is like lemongrass and essential oils, and it does a really good job of making the bees want to eat the food, and it keeps the bee food from rotting. I mean, bee food is just sugar and water, and sugar will, of course, mold pretty easily when you store it. So, the easy way to keep that from happening is using that lemongrass stuff. I've kept bee food in one of these storage containers for like 2 years, no mold. But of course, that's only if you put, you know, some of the Pro Health in it. All right, so there's the starts of what you need. Obviously, you need water. You need sugar. You need a pan. You also need like a tablespoon measure to put this in. But that goes along with like the measuring devices. And again, you know, what size measuring buckets you use will be dependent upon how much bee food you are intending to make. It's a 12-quart pan, and I've put 6 quarts of water. I start warming my water while I measure the sugar. I have 6 quarts of water that I need 6 quarts of sugar for. Now I can either do that by measuring 3 times to 2 quarts in a small bucket, or I can get a large bucket and put 6 quarts in it. Smaller buckets are easier to use when you're making just like one pan of the sugar water because you're not going to pour it all in at the same time. The larger bucket is more convenient for assembly line type of scenario where you're going to make a lot of sugar or you're going to make a lot of syrup, and you're going to set the sugar aside while you're doing other stuff. Pour not all of it, just pour some.
Tell me when.
Pour about half. Your guess. All right, hold. Let's stir.
That's about half.
Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, the special stirring technique. It makes all the difference in the taste for the bees. When you pour the sugar in, the water is going to go very cloudy. It's going to be like that until you stir it in and melt it, and then it goes back to clear. You may have also noticed the grinding noise when you put the spatula in and you're stirring it. That's just the sugar granules grinding at the bottom of the pan. Once you have all of the sugar in, stir it until it's not grinding or making any noise anymore. It'll go to a straw color. It will no longer be clear. 1-to-1 syrup is pretty thick, but you will be able to see the spatula and the bottom of the pan. Stop stirring for a minute and visually look down at the bottom. You can see it's straw colored. Look for any loose granules of sugar or undissolved sugar, and stir some more if there are some. Once I'm satisfied all the sugar is dissolved, I add the Pro Health with the lemongrass to keep the bee food from molding and to help encourage the bees to eat the food. There's the table you put in, I forget what it is, a few tablespoons per gallon or something like that. I'm always okay with putting a little extra in. Got to make sure you shake the bottle really well to get it stirred up.
I put the Pro Health in last because it's going to make the syrup cloudy again. And so being able to tell if there's any undissolved sugar becomes much more challenging after you've added this. But if you've already dissolved it all, then it doesn't matter, right? Final step is to take the 2 pans, because I make 2 pans at a time. Put the 2 pans of syrup in a 5-gallon bucket or a storage container of some sort. It's hot right now. I don't boil mine. I don't ever take my water to boiling. I don't boil the sugar. Just get it hot enough to dissolve it. And then I combined the 2 pans of the sugar in the bucket, and that neutralizes any errors in measurement that may have occurred along the way. Not that it would really matter anyway. You're going to want a lid for your bucket to store it, to keep it clean, and to keep the bees from finding it and swarming it when you don't want them to. But don't put the lid on tight right away. Let the bee food cool off a little bit. So put it on partially and then fully close it once it's cooled off a bit. 5-gallon buckets are convenient for storing large amounts of syrup, but they're not very convenient for dispensing the syrup. So to dispense the syrup, I put it in like 2 or 2.5 gallon jugs. And it's pretty convenient to then carry, store, and to pour into the beehives.
All right, there's a really weird friction phenomena when you pour the fluid in. It hits and it'll actually want to jump back out at you. And one of the things you don't want to do is have bee food spilled everywhere, because they'll come and get it whether it's inside or outside. So remember, careful not to overfill and pour it down that middle hole. And so that's all there is to it. And this camera can go for a ride. We just slide this closed and we're done.